Good evening and hello. Thanks for joining us for this interview with Ian Judson, author of Auntie Ada, the Unlikeliest Hero of the Holocaust. Um, Ian, your book was published in August 2025, and that was since followed by an ebook in December 2025. This interview is going to be released on Friday, the 27th of March, 2026, and I believe this is a significant date in your family's diary.
Yes, it is. Yeah, 27th of March, 2026. It'll be the 130th anniversary of the day that my great auntie Ada was actually born. So yeah, massively important day in our family, certainly.
Brilliant. And I mean, well, obviously, we get on to, I mean, she was born on 27th March 1896, and she sadly passed away on the 20th of June 1993. So she lived a very, long and what's- quite an involved life, which we'll get on to.
You could say that, yeah.
So she was in terms of relation, she was your great Auntie Ada, and obviously known to the family as
Yeah,
Auntie Ada. Others who would have
yeah.
come across her, either through her kind of career, if you want to call it that, or through contact with her and her charity work, would have
Mhm.
known her as Sister Agnes Walsh, or later
Yeah,
Sister Clare Walsh. Um,
yeah.
I guess starting Ian, because she would have been, you would have been quite young while she was in her older age. So what was your memories of her while you were growing up?
Auntie Ada, she was always very important to our family. She's actually my dad's aunt. So she was an elder sister to my grandma, but she was always there. You always knew about her. She was always held up as she was just a great inspiration to all of us, really, for the things that she did, what she achieved in life, and and the way she went about her life. Because as I know we're going to get on to, she came from from quite a wealthy background, and she went to take on life in the most basic, simplistic way that she possibly could. She didn't give any thought to the trappings of wealth that went with with her family, and having servants living with them in their house. She went and decided, I want to do my bit for the world by being a daughter of charity of St. Vincent de Paul and living in the most basic way possible. So she was always very important in our family. She got spoken about regularly. We were in regular contact with her. I mean, there's on the book, there's a picture of me and my mum with her and her carer in about 2 years before she passed away. That's when I was 17 in that photo. So I'd grown up knowing her. She was my first memory of her is her coming to our house in Leven after my grandma had passed away. She came up from London, where she was at the time, to attend the funeral. So that was my first meeting with her that I can remember, because
Mm.
I was 6, nearly 7 years old at the time. But she was always, there was a lot of times where, if you did something wrong, what would Auntie Ada say to you? What would Auntie Ada do? What would she think? What would she say to you? She had a very prevalent overlook of our family life, if you like, without probably even realizing it. So yeah, you were always very aware of her, certainly.
Yeah, she must have been an incredible presence, like you say, and as you touched upon, she came from a relatively privileged background, and yet her work as a daughter of charity would take her to very unprivileged places in the world. So yeah, I mean, what can you tell us about, what did she get up to as a daughter of charity?
Well, as a daughter of charity, the first thing I think we need to remember it. I mean, she worked for her father in his printing workshop. Her father was a compositor and printer, and he had his own printing workshop in Hull. And she worked for him. And I think she was massively influenced by her elder brother because Auntie Ada was the middle one of five children. She was the third one. Um, Doris was her elder sister. Alfred Bernard was her elder brother, and he preferred to be called Bernie because he had the same name as his dad. So they called the dad Alfred, and they called the brother Bernie. And he went in. He joined up in the First World War. He went to fight in the. He was in the cavalry, and he all I know is we because unfortunately his World War One records got destroyed by bombing the Blitz in World War Two. But from what I can work out, I think he joined up in 1916 because he doesn't have the Mons star, he doesn't have the 1914-15 star in his medals, which surely he would have done if he'd have joined up in time. So I think he joined up in 1916, and I think that's what influenced Auntie Ada, who at the time would have been 20 years old, and she decided then to join the Daughters of Charity. She went to a convent on Queen's Road in Hull. She joined up and she was sent to London to do her postulation. A postulation would take anything from 6 to 12 months. But during her postulation, she's down in London and she contracts scarlet fever. And this is where her privileged upbringing comes in quite important because in 1916, if you caught scarlet fever, that's it, you were isolated and you were probably never seen again. But because her father had a good enough living as a compositor, he could afford the very best medical care for her. So he brought her home from London to Hull. She had 3 months at home being nursed every day in her bedroom through a desperately worrying illness. After 3 months, she goes back to London to complete her postulation, and from there, 1917, she is then sent to Ireland to a place called Dunmanway, and she gets there, and of course, what's happened in Ireland in 1916? They've had the Easter Uprising, and Ireland at the time is a very fraught place, and so she's there, and we know that she saw some of the Irish Civil War because I've researched it, and it's mentioned in the book that certainly there was action took place in Dunmanway while she's there in 1918. She's there until 1924, so by then the Civil War is ended, the creation of the Irish Free State has happened, but there's still fighting going on, particularly in Northern Ireland. 1924, she's then sent to Town, and she's there until 1932. And then the most fortunate thing happens to her in 1932 when she leaves Ireland. She's going to Jerusalem because she's made a very good impression. I've learnt about this since I wrote the book. She's made a very good impression on somebody. They decided they want her to go to the Holy City on her mission. So she's sent to Jerusalem. But because she's been in Ireland for 15 years, either that or because her her paternal grandfather was born in Dublin, they've issued her with an Irish passport. So she goes to Jerusalem. She's there for 2 years. And unfortunately, she has an unfortunate accident, falls down some stone steps, severely injures her back, and is told, right, you can't stay here. It's too awkward because obviously in Jerusalem, it's about being able to get up and down stone steps around that city an awful lot. So she is told, you need better medical treatment than what is available here now. Auntie Ada, she's a daughter of charity in the Holy City, and the Auntie Ada that I know if there was even the slightest modicum of a chance that she could have stayed in the holy city, she would have stayed there. Make no mistake about it. But she obviously accepted that she was incapacitated somewhat and she needs to go and get better medical treatment. So she's sent to Paris. This is in 1934, and of course, by that point, there's this little fella called Hitler has come to power in Germany. He's making a bit of a nuisance of himself. Um, but she goes to Paris. She's there in 1934. She's there until 1940. And of course, 14th of June 1940, the Nazis invade Paris. So Auntie Ada is then living in a war zone again. She's there. She's an illegal alien. If she'd have been denounced, she'd be in serious stuck. You know, she'd be in serious trouble. Um, but at the time, she's applied to go and be the assistant, the soir assistante, as it's called, to the Mother Superior at a convent in a little village called Cadouan in the Dordogne. She is appointed to that role in 1940. I haven't got an exact date when she's appointed to it, but she is, and she's sent to Cadouan, which at the time is in unoccupied France. You know, France was only occupied, you know, in Paris, northern areas, etc. at that point. So she's sent to the south of France, where she's quite safe. Then, of course, November 1942, the Germans decide, right, we're going to occupy the rest of France, which of course they do. And on the same day, believe it or not, on exactly that date, in November 1942, Auntie Ada's Mother Superior, Sister Louise Granier, is sat in a railway station in Villeneuve-sur-Lot, which is about 60 miles away from Cadouan. She sat there waiting for a train, and she gets talking to a man called Pierre Cremieux. And he explains he's Jewish, he has a wife, he has a son, and he's very nervous, obviously, because of the way that the Nazis are treating Jews. And Sister Granier says, well, look, we will help if we can. If you need help, you can come to us. And they stayed in contact, but then in late January 1944 or early February, the milice, which is the secret police in France, they're working alongside the likes of Klaus Barbie, the Gestapo, the SS, the Einsatzgruppen, and they start rounding up Jews. They're helping them to round up Jews to deport them because, of course, they want to be on their good side because they're in charge. And Pierre Cremieux sends his wife, Simone, his son, Alain, and their two new twins, Jean-Pierre and Colette. He rings the convent, he speaks to Auntie Ada, and she says, just come. But he puts them in a taxi and sends them to the convent in Cadouan. They get there, and Auntie Ada and Sister Granier, they're the only ones who know who they are, why they're there. They hatch this plan, they hatch this story. Oh, we've got to tell people that Simone is a friend or a relative of Sister Granier, and she needs to recover from the birth of the twins. So that's why they're there. At the time, Alain is a 7-year-old boy. He can't stay in a convent. So they put him in the local presbytery with the priest. And they are there from either late January or early February until the end of April 1944. And Auntie Ada is the one who she is going in, she's teaching Alain to make sure he doesn't miss out on his education. Of course, he's a 7-year-old boy. He needs an education the same as anybody else. And what she hatches this plan to treat them just as normal French a French Catholic family. She takes the children and Simone to Sunday morning mass every week, so nobody questions why they're there. Nobody questions it. They don't realize that it's a Jewish family because, of course, in France at the time, helping a Jew, you're breaking the law. And so Auntie Ada and Sister Granny, they're taking absolutely horrendous risks. And so they keep them safe. And April 1944, it would seem that it becomes a lot more safer again in Villeneuve-sur-Lot. So they go back to Villeneuve-sur-Lot because Pierre Cremier, he'd said, "Oh, I'll stay on my own, so people will still think we're here, and if I'm on my own, I can make a run for it if I need to." And and he'd go and visit them on weekends in Cadouan. But in April 1944, it's a lot safer. They go back there. But what we know from the foreword in the book by Alain Cremier, and it was the first time I knew about this when he sent me the foreword, they're not the only ones. There was at least another Jewish family and a Jewish girl already there when they got there. So my thing is, we don't know how many Jews that they hid, and we don't know over how long. And what we do know is Sister Granier was telling Pierre Cremier in November 1942, "Just come, we'll help you if we can." So I don't know how many they took in, how long they were doing it for, how long it went on for beyond then. We don't know. But what we do know is that they took horrendous risks to keep them safe. And it's a testament to Auntie Ada, the fact that Alain Cremier is still with us and was able to write the foreword to the book, because without her, as a Jew, we all know what would have happened to him as a 7-year-old Jewish boy. He would have ended up somewhere like Auschwitz, Bergen-Belsen, Dachau, Treblinka, wherever. And we know what would have happened to him and his family, and it didn't because of what Auntie Ada did. And that's what made me write the book, because I thought this is a story that people need to tell. And that the fact was, she attached no importance to this. To her, she was named on the list of the righteous among the nations in 1990. And that photo on the back of the book is taken in 1991. And she never even spoke about it. Even then, didn't attach any importance to it. It was just a case of she'd done what she needed to do. And that was it. And, I knew through my family, we knew that she'd done something in the Holocaust. I was told, and I have a feeling they tried to sugarcoat it, if you like, because I was a child. I was told, "Oh, she smuggled a Jewish family out of Paris the days the Nazis marched into it." It was only many years later that I actually got the full story as to what actually happened. And about a year before she passed away, I went to see Auntie Ada, and she told me then, when I was 18, because by then I'm an adult, and she's telling me, "I wish I'd visited Auschwitz so that I could, in remembrance of Jewish people who were not as lucky as the Cremier family and the others that she helped." And I just said to her, "Well, I'll go on your behalf." And I'll never forget it. She reached out like that, went like that on my cheek and said, "You're a good lad, Ian." And I'll never forget that. And, so I have since visited Auschwitz. I've actually been twice. And, and I'll never forget, she just said that. But like I say, I didn't realize she was on the list of the righteous among the nations at the time. I knew about the list. I didn't realize my great auntie Ada was on it. So, that came quite some years later, because, like I say, she attached no importance to it. It was just, I did what I did. and that it was as simple as that for her.
Mm.
And I think what really made it for her was the fact that she and the Crimea family remained friends for quite some years afterwards, for a lot of years, and not just in France, even when she came back to England. You know, um, when you look at the book, there's pictures on the front of Alain Crimea with her when he's a grown man, and his wife Colette with Auntie Ada in Ealing. Um, and that for me makes this story is the fact that they came over here and they still kept visiting her,
Mm.
and just what a I just thought what a great story. It's just fantastic, and it needs telling to everybody. But yeah, that's basically what she got up to when she was in the Daughters of Charity. What what motivated her? I'm not really sure. Was it just you know she's a good, strong, whole girl. Would she be thrilled at the thought of putting one over on the Germans? Very possibly. That's the sort of character that she was. Or was it just, I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do? I've asked people this, what do you think was her motivation? And the majority is, well, it's just a sense of duty, if you like, that sort of thing. That's all that's bothered. She's done it because she knows it's the right thing to do. Um, but
Mm.
like I said, the Auntie Ada that I know, yeah, she'd want to do the right thing. That's absolutely what she was completely about. But I get the feeling there was that element of, well, I know I can get one over on the Germans here because, of course, what's the important point here? The important point is that she had an Irish passport. She could go about in Cadouan and go past German checkpoints, etc. And she'd flash her Irish passport, which, of course, would mean she was from a neutral country. They wouldn't know she was British. She's got an Irish passport. So, it'd be, all right, yeah, you can pass. And what also was important about the Irish passports was because she's registered as Irish, she actually qualified for Red Cross parcels because the convent in Cadwani was a school for teaching young girls how to become good farmers' wives, mothers, etc. And so, because of the students in the school, because she's got an Irish passport, she qualified for extra food parcels, etc. That would obviously help the school out, would help the children out, would help the other sisters out. And so the Irish passport is obviously the really important aspect here. The fact, like I said, she got given an Irish passport. I don't know if it was because she was in Ireland for 15 years or because of the fact that her grandfather was actually Irish, one or the other, or maybe both combined is what convinced them. And so, she could get away with things that maybe other people couldn't to an extent. But what we do also know is that somebody did denounce her. They must have done because she was taken in by the police. She was interviewed and she was eventually released. We don't know what she was asked. She never told us about it. Because again, she didn't attach any importance to it. It was, oh, it happened. I got released. That's that. It's a very strong whole girl attitude, if you like. So yeah, that's what Auntie Ada got up to in the Daughters of Charity, and that's why she was eventually named on the list of the righteous among the nations. And then posthumously, of course, in 2010, she was awarded the British Hero of the Holocaust award. Again, a fantastic thing, which is in my possession now. And every time I look at it, I think, just wow. How do I get my head around this? This is what my great auntie Ada did. And So there you go. That's why Auntie Ada deserved to have a biography written about her.
And she obviously she was very humble, like you've touched upon. So she
Yeah.
perhaps wouldn't have been too pleased, perhaps, at having a biography.
She'd be horrified at me writing a biography. She'd be like, well, my life isn't interesting enough for somebody to write a book about me, but you better damn well make sure you get everything right, Ian. Once I'd written it, she'd want to read it to make sure I've got everything right, that I haven't missold her. Basically, she's that, again, it's that whole attitude, that whole character, oh, I don't know why you're doing this, but you better make sure you get it right, sort of thing. So, yeah, she was very humble and very, she just didn't attach any great importance to this, like I attach great importance to it and other people do. She didn't, but it would be a case of, well, I'll read it and then I'll tell you if there's anything that you've got wrong and then you can put it correct, sort of thing. So, it's a tragedy that we don't have her here anymore for me to consult with her, but I hope that I've done her. I hope I've got it across correctly about what she did, basically.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. I think should be proud of that, and you. I guess it doesn't just stop with the book, does it? Because you're doing follow up activities. So recently
Yeah.
there's been an exhibition. So do you want to talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that and what's going to happen next with the exhibition?
Yeah, the exhibition, we've got a bit of breaking news about that. I'll come to that in a minute. But yeah, in September 2025, we had an exhibition. I curated an exhibition about her. I mean, me curating something seems strange to say, but we had an exhibition about her at Hull History Centre, which I was able to get Alain Cremier, who wrote the foreword for the book, the Jewish lad, the 7-year-old boy that she protected in occupied France. He actually came over to Hull to open the exhibition for us and to talk at the exhibition for us. And so he was there with his wife. And that has now moved on to, there's a local museum up here called the Sutton and Warne Museum. It used to be a school. It's now a museum and has been for many years, and it's been threatened with closure. And so I took the exhibition there and said, right, let's put it on in here towards the end of January, which of course is Holocaust Memorial time. And what we did was, at Hull History Centre, we got some children from the school down the same street where the convent was that Auntie Ada joined, the Daughters of Charity. In January, we got children from the school that museum it was their school building before they moved into the current building. It's in the 1970s, because that museum is threatened with closure, and we thought, well, Auntie Ada can do her bit to keep it open because obviously it's in her hometown of Hull. She'd want to keep that resource open. She's helping to do that, and then the breaking news. I've just been sent a message today, um, asking me, oh, the St. There's a school in Mill Hill next near the provincial house where Auntie Ada saw out her final years, where the photo on the back of the book is actually taken. There's a school just down the street from it, and they've asked if I could potentially bring the exhibition there. And what we did in January at Sutton and One Museum, we did a video link to Alain Cremier, and he spoke to the school children. They asked him questions, etc. And there's two other schools that I've been to speak at where they're going to do a video link with Alain Cremier to both of them at some point as well, so he can speak to them. and I'm hopeful in Mill Hill, the school there, Alan Cremier, I would like to think hopefully we can get a video link to him there. I can't say for definite because I've only got the message today. I've got to chase him up and ask him, would you be willing to do this again and see what he says. But certainly the way that he's responded to the book, to the exhibition before, I'm very hopeful that he would agree to do a video link to a school that Auntie Ada would have known. She was along the street from it for however many years. She would be aware of it, So hopefully we can get a video link to him to speak to them as well. So yeah, that's happening. I've got a booking to speak to the English Catholic Historical Society in October as well. And and people, they just seem to pop up every now and again. Oh, can you come and talk to us about your great auntie Ada? And so people can just get in touch with me if they want. They can find me as Ian Judson on Facebook and contact me and say, yeah, we want you to come and talk to us about your great auntie Ada. We want to see the exhibition because, of course, it includes the British Hero of the Holocaust medal, and it includes also the bit I'm really nervous about. We've got her actual original prayer book that she would have been given in 1916 by the Daughters of Charity, and it's got her handwriting in the front of it. We have that as a real bit of genuine history.
Hmm.
And so every time somebody wants to see that, I get nervous. I'm like, I won't let it out of my sight. It's so precious and it's so special. So yeah, but people can contact me anytime. They can email me at ian.judson123@gmail.com if they want, and they can book me, and I'll go anywhere. I'm coming down to London in the autumn, and I'll go anywhere to talk about Auntie Ada because I think more people need to know the story, and certainly I need more people to buy the book.
Indeed. No, I think yeah, as I say, you're doing a lot to promote her story, and I think it's definitely an interesting book to read, and it's a different type of story. It's not the kind of maybe popular narrative to the Second World War. It's that of quite an innocent lady who just wanted to go and help help people out.
Yeah,
So and it's so I think finally it's this for you as well is it has opened up other kind of avenues. So
yeah,
obviously your kind of experience and career is in journalism, but
yeah,
you're now pivoting towards doing some more research and potentially a PhD.
yeah.
Is that right?
That's correct. Yes. Basically, what I've done, and it's some more breaking news, and I didn't warn you about this. I have found another nun in the south of France who did something very similar to Auntie Ada. So I am pivoting towards doing a PhD through, hopefully through University College London, a Holocaust Education Centre, uh, focusing on Auntie Ada and this other nun that I found, and hopefully to get more research out there and show, that there is so much more to learn here.
Mm.
Because what I said was at the time that we did the exhibition and we were interviewed, myself and Alan, we were interviewed by the BBC over and over and over again. And the message I wanted to get out there was that there was so much hatred in the world right now. Let's use this story to inspire people to do something good, and let's make people understand not everybody hates. Not all immigrants are bad, because let's face it, Auntie Ada in France, she was an immigrant. She was there. She was a British woman in France, in occupied France, and she, as far as they were concerned, she was breaking the law. And God knows what could have happened to her. She could quite easily have ended up at somewhere like Auschwitz, wherever else that you care to mention. Anything could have happened to her. Um, and that for me is an important part of this. is to show this is what happens when hatred happens, and this is why we need to avoid it as much as we can, and this is why we need to learn about it. You talk about the Holocaust, people think of Jews and gas chambers and not much more. And I want to teach people about that, about what happened and about how it was allowed to happen and make people realize, it didn't just start with gas chambers. It was very deep seated how this all happened and why
Mm.
Auntie Ed obviously felt the need to take the action that she did. But so yeah, it's very possible that later this year you'll come back to me and I'll say yes, I'm studying a PhD. In a few years' time, hopefully I'll be Dr. Ian rather than Ian MA.
Well, fingers crossed. We wish you well in your studies to come. And yeah, obviously, if you haven't already bought a copy of Ian's book, Auntie Ada, now's the time to do so. So please visit either our website, barnformpublishing.co.uk, or head over to our friends at Amazon, where you can buy the book physically or as an ebook if that's your preference. So Ian, thank you so much for this interview, and I think it would be a perfect 130th birthday present for Auntie Ada.
I
And we
hope so.
look fingers crossed, and yeah, and look forward to hearing from you again in the near future.
Thank you very much, Ashley. It's been an absolute privilege. Thank you so much.
That's okay. All right. Well, goodbye from both of us.